Jeff, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, what did you make of what came out of that those events in Washington?
I think the IMF is in an interesting position, and I guess the communique that came out that was a little bit perhaps more strongly worded than they have done so in the past, but ultimately I don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference.
Right. What can they actually do, though?
Well, the IMF is in a unique position in that the only way that they can actually get any outcome from anything that they do is to have consensus, and quite frankly, if they had consensus, they wouldn't be required in the first place.
Right, but they're turning into a currency COP. Isn't that the case?
They're trying to, but they're a COP without any sort of gun or taser or any of that sort of stuff. They don't really have any recourse in terms of what they can force people to do, or countries to do, if they're not doing the right thing. So I guess the IMF... Go on.
I'm just going, at the heart of it, though, we have a US dollar which is continuingly weakening, and that's causing all these problems to some extent.
Absolutely it is. You certainly won't get any arguments from me. Unfortunately, the comments from the IMF won't be able to change a trend that's I guess got several $100 trillion behind it now. So there's not a great deal that they can do. They can come out and be as firm or as strong as they like, but it's going to need a pretty broad-based sentiment shift for the currencies to move the way that they'd like it to.
Even if we had a revaluation of the yuan here, would it make any difference?
I mean, they're going to have to do valuations of a significantly bigger size than they've done so in the past. I don't think that the Chinese have an appetite for that. So, yes, perhaps is the answer to your question, but do I think it's likely? Highly unlikely would be my position on that.
OK, let's also talk about where you are there. I mean, I'm surprised you're not travelling around, given the strength of your currency. Yes.
Well, the Aussie's doing very, very well.
When do we get parity? Yeah, when do we get parity?
You know, I always say to people, I can tell you where something's going, but timing is the tough part. I would suggest it's going... I mean, it could do 2 cents in a night, or it could take another 3 months, who knows. I would suggest it'll be there by Christmas, which is kind of my conservative, half-pregnant answer.
OK, but the recent move we've seen has been pretty rapid here, especially, you know, we got that fillip from that jobs data just about last week, or week before, I should say.
Well, I was looking at the Aussie before I left the office, and, I mean, the way it's moving, it seems like it's pretty rapid kind of on a day-to-day basis, but it does spend a goodly amount of time consolidating the move before it takes another stab higher. I was looking at the weekly chart, and the weekly chart isn't actually anywhere near as steep as you would expect it to be. So I think it's actually more sustained than what people believe or think.
Right. So what are the limits to this then? I mean, do we go beyond 1-to-1?
Yeah. Our target for the Aussie is 103. With a potential blow-off towards 106. So we're talking about still quite a significant amount of upside to go. Historically, what's happened to the Aussie whenever it reaches these levels, even in the 90s, is that it'll fall 15 or 20 cents kind of quick smart. When it starts to fall, a lot of the fast money buying exits just as quickly as they moved into it. So I would expect... I mean, if a client was to come in and say, Jeff, we're thinking about moving into long positions on the Aussie, I would suggest that maybe now isn't the right time to be putting on new longs because the risk is more to the downside. But having said that, we do expect it to grind up at least another 5 or 6 cents.
Jeff, thank you very much indeed for joining us.